At her nephew's birthday party, Claire had no intention of making a scene, until her father, with a glass raised, asked the one question she had spent years avoiding. "So, Claire, when are you going to give us a child of your own?" What followed wasn't an argument. It was an envelope, and the truth, finally released after 6 years of silence, would change everything this family thought they knew. Stay with Claire until the very last word, because her truth is deeper than you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that unravel what others try to hide. Chapter 1. The Question. The July heat in Savannah pressed down like a weighted blanket, making even the streamers and balloons at little Theo's birthday party droop in surrender. The Mitchell family gathered under the sprawling oak tree in the backyard of the colonial-style home that had witnessed 3 generations of family triumphs, secrets, and unspoken resentments. Claire Mitchell dabbed at her forehead with a napkin, her dark auburn hair, usually so meticulously styled, starting to curl at the edges from the humidity. At 35, she carried herself with the careful poise of someone who had learned to navigate family gatherings like minefields. Her cream linen dress was immaculate despite the heat, a small act of defiance against the chaos of a children's party. "Aunt Claire, watch me!" 6-year-old Theo, the birthday boy, shouted as he raced past with a toy airplane clutched in his small hand. Something in Claire's chest tightened as she watched him. Those hazel eyes, the dimple on his left cheek that appeared when he smiled. She swallowed hard. "I see you, buddy," she called back, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. From across the yard, her sister Lena caught her eye. Perfect Lena, with her perfect husband Mark and their perfect child, the firstborn, the one who had done everything right, in the correct order, according to the Mitchell family playbook. Lena's smile was tense, a silent communication passing between the sisters. "Don't do this. Not today. Please. Claire Bear, be a sweetheart and help your mother with the cake," her father, Richard Mitchell, called from his throne-like position at the head of the table. At 68, he still commanded the family with the authority of a CEO running a board meeting. His silver hair was impeccably groomed, his polo shirt crisp despite the southern heat. "Sure, Dad." Claire moved toward the house, passing her mother Margaret, who was arranging candles on an elaborate dinosaur-themed cake. "You're awfully quiet today," Margaret observed, her eyes, the same deep green as Claire's, studying her younger daughter with the scrutiny that had made Claire feel transparent her entire life. At 65, Margaret wore her years elegantly, her silver blonde hair cut in a sophisticated bob, her linen pants and blouse as unwrinkled as if she'd just put them on. "Just the heat, Mom," Claire replied, reaching for the matches. "You brought it, didn't you?" Margaret whispered, her voice barely audible over the children's laughter outside. Claire's hand froze mid-reach. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb, Claire. It doesn't suit you." Margaret's fingers closed around Claire's wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "We had an agreement for Lena, for this family." Claire pulled her arm away. 6 years, Mom. 6 years of agreements and secrets and lies. She looked her mother directly in the eyes. "I'm tired." Margaret's face hardened. "Being tired is a luxury none of us can afford. Now help me with this cake before your father comes looking for us." The cake procession moved outside like a well-choreographed dance, Margaret leading with the glowing creation, Claire following with plates and forks, Lena directing the children to gather around, and Mark capturing everything on his expensive camera. Richard Mitchell stood and raised his glass of sweet tea. "A toast," he announced, his southern drawl more pronounced in moments of ceremony. "To our grandson Theo, the pride and joy of the Mitchell family. 6 years old and already showing the Mitchell spirit of determination." Glasses clinked. Theo beamed from his special chair, a paper crown slightly askew on his head. Richard Mitchell turned his attention to Claire, his smile remaining, but his eyes calculating. "So, Claire, when are you finally giving this family a child of your own? You're not getting any younger, and it's about time you settled down like your sister." The ambient chatter around the table died. Someone's fork clinked awkwardly against a plate. A bird called from the oak tree, unaware of the sudden tension. Claire felt every eye on her. Lena's wide with warning, her mother's narrowed in silent command. Mark's uncomfortable. And the curious stares of extended family members who loved nothing more than Mitchell family drama served alongside birthday cake. She reached for her purse hanging on the back of her chair, her movements deliberate. The envelope inside was crisp, white, official-looking. She'd carried it for weeks, waiting for the moment that felt right, or perhaps waiting for the moment she felt brave enough. "I already did," Claire said, her voice clear in the sudden silence. She placed the envelope on the table. 6 years ago, to be exact. Theo looked up from his cake, confused by the strange tension among the adults. "Theo, what does that mean? Did you have a baby like Mommy did with me?" Claire knelt beside him, brushing a strand of his dark hair from his forehead, a gesture she had restrained herself from doing too often. "Something like that, buddy." Richard Mitchell's face darkened. "Claire, if this is one of your dramatic stunts, open it, Dad. Or should I do the honors? I think we've had enough secrets in this family to last several lifetimes, don't you?" As the truth began to unfold on that sweltering Savannah afternoon, none of the party guests noticed the clouds gathering on the horizon, promising the kind of summer storm that washes everything clean but leaves destruction in its wake. If this story has captured your attention, if you feel the weight of family secrets and the courage it takes to speak truth, subscribe to our channel right now. Chapter 2 will reveal what happened 6 years ago between these two sisters and how one moment of desperation led to years of silent suffering. Don't miss the moment when the Mitchell family's carefully constructed facade comes crashing down. Hit that subscribe button. Some stories are too powerful to walk away from. Chapter 2. The Confession. 6 years earlier, Savannah Medical Center, 3:17 a.m. Two women in adjacent delivery rooms experienced life-altering moments merely minutes apart. In room 307, Lena Mitchell Collins pushed through her final contraction, her husband Mark clutching her hand, as if his grip alone could alter the outcome they'd been dreading since the doctor's face had changed during the last ultrasound. The room fell into a terrible silence. No newborn cry, just the muffled sobs of a mother whose baby's heart had stopped beating 2 days before. In room 309, Claire bit down on the washcloth she'd been given, alone except for the medical staff, having told no one in her family about her pregnancy, least of all her sister, who had been trying for years. When her daughter's robust cry filled the room, Claire wept with a complex mixture of joy, fear, and overwhelming shame. Margaret Mitchell arrived at the hospital wearing two faces, the devastated mother supporting her eldest daughter through stillbirth, and the furious matriarch confronting her younger daughter's unplanned pregnancy. "How could you be so careless?" she hissed in the hallway outside Claire's room, her voice low but sharp as a scalpel. "Your sister has done everything right, everything, and now this?" Claire, exhausted from 18 hours of labor, stared at her mother through swollen eyes. "This wasn't planned, Mom. I didn't get pregnant to hurt Lena." "Who's the father?" Margaret demanded, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "It doesn't matter. He's not in the picture." Claire looked away, unwilling to discuss James, the photojournalist who'd spent 3 passionate months with her before taking an assignment overseas, unaware he was leaving behind more than just memories. Margaret's breathing was controlled, measured, the way it always was when she was formulating a plan. "Lena can never know you were pregnant at the same time as her. It would destroy her." "Mom, I just had a baby. My baby. Can we talk about this later?" "Your baby," Margaret repeated, her voice hollow. "And my daughter down the hall has empty arms because her baby's heart stopped beating. Do you have any idea what this will do to this family? Your father will be devastated by your irresponsibility. Lena and Mark have been trying for 3 years, doing everything right, married, financially stable, following every rule." Claire closed her eyes, too exhausted to fight. "What do you want from me, Mom?" That's when Margaret Mitchell proposed the unthinkable, a solution so extreme that even in her depleted state, Claire felt the wrongness of it like a physical pain. But her mother's words worked their way into the cracks of her insecurity, her lifelong position as the family disappointment, the unmarried daughter with the artistic career that her father dismissed as a hobby. "You're not ready to be a mother," Margaret insisted. "You live in that tiny apartment, you have no savings, no partner. But Lena and Mark, they have everything prepared. A nursery, college funds already started, two parents who desperately want a child." "You're asking me to give away my baby?" Claire whispered, her voice breaking. Margaret leaned closer. "I'm asking you to give your sister the gift that life has cruelly taken from her. No one outside this hospital would ever know. The babies were born within an hour of each other. The paperwork can be managed." "That's insane, Mom. It's illegal. It's the only way to hold this family together." Margaret's voice softened, employing the manipulative tenderness she reserved for her most devastating maneuvers. "Claire, be honest with yourself. Are you ready to be a single mother? To give up your freedom, your career opportunities? To face your father's disappointment? To watch Lena spiral into depression while you raise a child alone?" The weight of those questions, combined with postpartum hormones and exhaustion, was too much. Later, Claire would recognize this as the moment she betrayed herself most profoundly. But in that sterile hospital hallway, with her mother's relentless pressure and her own fears amplified, she found herself nodding. Within hours, hospital records were altered through connections Margaret had cultivated over decades in Savannah society. A grieving Lena and Mark were told that the initial assessment had been wrong. Their baby was alive, a miracle that the attending physician couldn't explain. Claire was told her baby, despite initially seeming healthy, had developed complications and wouldn't survive the night. Claire held her daughter only once before the exchange, memorizing the perfect bow of her lips, the delicate eyebrows, the tiny fingernails. She whispered a promise that somehow, someday, she would make this right. For 6 years, she watched her biological child grow up calling another woman mommy. She became Aunt Claire, the cool photographer who brought Theo gifts from her travels, who volunteered to babysit more than any aunt normally would, who sometimes had to leave family gatherings abruptly when the weight of her secret became unbearable. Margaret ensured her silence through a combination of guilt, family loyalty, and occasional reminders of what the truth would do to Lena, to Theo, to the entire family structure. Richard remained blissfully unaware, celebrating his grandson and continuing to press Claire about her unmarried, childless status. But 3 months ago, something changed. Theo had developed concerning symptoms that confused his doctors. Tests were ordered, including genetic screenings. Claire recognized the danger immediately. Medical science would not maintain their family fiction. She'd gotten herself tested privately, confirming what she already knew in her heart. The DNA results she now held at Theo's birthday party were irrefutable proof of a truth that had been buried for 6 years. Back in the present, Claire's hand trembled slightly as she held the envelope, but her voice remained steady. "Mom knows what's in here," she said, meeting her mother's eyes across the table. "She's known all along." "Claire, please," Margaret whispered, her carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. Lena stood up suddenly, her napkin falling to the ground. "What are you talking about? Mom, what is she talking about?" Richard Mitchell's confusion was shifting rapidly to anger. Someone better start explaining what the hell is going on here. Claire took a deep breath, feeling strangely light, as if the weight of 6 years was finally lifting from her shoulders. 6 years ago, Lena and I were in the hospital on the same night. Lena was having Theo, and I was having a baby too. Mark's face went pale. "What?" "My baby was born healthy," Claire continued, her eyes now fixed on Theo, who was looking between the adults with growing concern. "Lena's baby was stillborn." Lena made a strangled sound, her hand flying to her mouth. No, that's not true. Theo was fine. There was a mistake, the doctor said. There was no mistake, Lena, Claire said gently. There was a lie. A swap. Orchestrated by Mom. All eyes turned to Margaret Mitchell, whose perfect posture had crumpled. She looked suddenly older, diminished. I did what was best for this family, she said, her voice barely audible. Lena and Mark were prepared for a child. They deserved a child. Claire wasn't ready. You had no right, Claire's voice broke for the first time. He's my son, my biological son. The words hung in the humid air like the approaching storm clouds, heavy, dark, charged with the potential for destruction. Theo's small voice cut through the tension. I don't understand. Whose birthday is it? Chapter 3. The Reckoning. The party guests had been tactfully ushered out by Mark's parents with vague explanations about family matters, leaving only the core Mitchell family in the backyard as the first fat raindrops began to fall from the darkened sky. The timing of the summer storm seemed almost theatrically perfect, nature providing a backdrop for the family's unraveling. Everyone inside, Richard commanded, his CEO voice attempting to regain control of a situation that had spiraled far beyond his authority. Not in front of the boy. Theo clung to Lena, confused and frightened by the tension crackling between the adults he trusted most. Mark stood behind them, his hand protectively on his wife's shoulder, his face ashen. Theo, buddy, Mark said, his voice strained but gentle, why don't you go play with your new dinosaur set in your room for a bit? The grown-ups need to talk. Is Aunt Claire mad at Mommy? Theo asked, his lower lip trembling slightly. Claire felt her heart fracture at being called aunt by her own child, a pain she'd suppressed for 6 years suddenly raw and bleeding. Nobody, I'm not mad at your mommy. We just have some grown-up things to figure out. Promise? His hazel eyes, her eyes, looked at her with such trust that Claire had to turn away. Promise, she managed to say. We all love you very much. That's one thing that will never change. Once Theo was upstairs, the remaining Mitchell family gathered in the formal living room, a space reserved for important discussions and holiday gatherings, its elegant furnishings a testament to Margaret's impeccable taste. Outside, the rain began to fall in earnest, drumming against the windows. Richard Mitchell poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon without offering any to anyone else. Explain, he demanded, looking between his wife and younger daughter. Every detail, now. Claire placed the DNA results on the antique coffee table. It's all there, Dad. Genetic testing confirms that I am Theo's biological mother. This is insane, Lena whispered, her hands shaking so badly that Mark gently took them in his. I carried him. I gave birth to him. I felt him move inside me for months. You carried a baby, Claire corrected gently. A baby boy who was stillborn. I'm so sorry, Lena. I truly am. And you're claiming that what? Mom somehow switched the babies? Mark asked, his logical attorney's mind trying to process the unthinkable. All eyes turned to Margaret, who sat perfectly straight on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped in her lap, knuckles white. Margaret? Richard's voice had lost its commanding edge, replaced by something that sounded dangerously close to pleading. Tell me this isn't true. I protected this family, Margaret said softly. I made a difficult decision in an impossible moment. Lena made a sound like a wounded animal. Mom, you did this? You knew my baby had died and you just replaced him? Like exchanging a defective product? I couldn't bear to see you suffer, Margaret's voice cracked. You and Mark had tried for so long. Everything was ready, the nursery, the announcements. And Claire's pregnancy was an accident, unplanned, the father not even in the picture. So you decided to steal my child? Claire's voice was dangerously quiet. I gave your child a better life than you could have provided, Margaret shot back, a flash of the steel beneath her perfect exterior. A stable home, 2 parents, financial security. That wasn't your decision to make. Claire stood, unable to contain the energy coursing through her. You made me believe my baby had died. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Richard set his glass down with a sharp click. I had no knowledge of this, none. Of course you didn't, Margaret replied, a bitter edge to her voice. You never wanted to know the messy details of keeping this family's image intact, just the results. Lightning flashed outside, momentarily illuminating the room in harsh white light, throwing the family's expressions into sharp relief. Lena's devastation, Mark's shock, Richard's anger, Margaret's defiance, and Claire's resolve. What do you want, Claire? Mark finally asked, the question cutting through the charged silence. Theo's been having those mysterious symptoms. The doctors wanted genetic testing. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out medically. She paused. And I couldn't live with the lie anymore. Not when my father sits at every family gathering asking when I'm going to have children of my own. So what now? Lena's voice was barely audible. You want to take him away from us? The only parents he's ever known? No, Claire said firmly. I would never traumatize him that way. But I want acknowledgement of the truth. I want to be part of his life as more than just Aunt Claire. I want him to know his biological mother when he's old enough to understand. This will destroy him, Lena whispered. Secrets destroy families, Claire countered. Look at what this one has done to us already. Richard Mitchell, the patriarch of the family that was crumbling before his eyes, suddenly looked old and defeated. How do we even begin to untangle this mess without hurting the boy? The question hummed in the air as thunder rumbled overhead. 6 years of lies, of silent suffering, of watching another woman raise her child, Claire felt simultaneously liberated and terrified by the truth finally being spoken aloud. We start with honesty, not all at once, not in ways that would confuse or hurt Theo, but we stop pretending, we stop with the lies. And legally? Mark asked, the attorney in him emerging despite his personal devastation. Claire, what you're describing, what happened, it's multiple felonies. I'm not interested in legal action, Claire said quietly. I'm interested in healing, for all of us, but especially for Theo.
Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Everyone froze, looking toward the ceiling, wondering how much little ears might have overheard. Margaret stood suddenly. I'll check on him, she said, moving toward the stairs. No. Claire's voice was firm. I think you've done enough, Mom. She looked at Lena. We should go together, as the 2 women who love him most in this world. For a moment, Lena looked as though she might refuse, her face a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Then, slowly, she nodded. As the 2 sisters moved toward the stairs, Claire paused and turned back to the broken family tableau. Dad, Mom, the question you asked me today, about when I would give this family a child of my own? Her voice was steady despite the tears threatening to spill. The answer is that I already did, 6 years ago. And now I'd like the chance to actually be his mother. The storm outside was reaching its peak. Wind driving rain against the windows in sheets, tree branches scraping against the house like fingernails. But inside, in the wake of truth finally spoken, a different kind of tempest was just beginning, one that would forever alter the landscape of the Mitchell family. If this story has moved you, if you recognize the courage it takes to speak truth to power, or if you've ever carried a secret that was too heavy to bear alone, subscribe to our channel now. We tell stories that reflect the complex reality of women's lives, the impossible choices we sometimes face, and the strength we find in our darkest moments. Join our community of viewers who believe in the power of authentic storytelling. Hit that subscribe button and be the first to know when we release new content that explores the complicated beauty of women's lives. Some truths are too important to remain unspoken, just as your voice is too important to go unheard. Subscribe today and be part of the conversation.